You're listening to Online Pet Health Podcasts with Dr. Megan Kelly. Continuing education for veterinarian rehabilitation therapists. Learn more at onlinepethealth.com.
Hey Vet Rehabbers, Dr. Megan Kelly here. Thank you so much for joining me on the Veterinary Rehabilitation Podcast. Today we chat to Ben Blecha from Go Hero Braces on one of my Behind the Vet Rehab product podcasts. Ben has a really interesting story. So being an amputee himself, it led him to become a human prosthetist, and then he made the move over into animals. Ben is a lifelong learner, and he is continually very, very supportive of continued education in all things about orthotics, prosthetics, vet rehab, and physio, and we thank him for that. He tells me about his stifle brace and 3 unique differences that the brace has, and how his personal experience as an amputee has driven him to continually innovate and develop his products. Over to Ben. Welcome, Ben. Thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you.
Now, Ben, you have a really interesting story about how you started Hero Braces. Won't you share with our listeners how you got into bracing for animals?
Well, originally, I'm actually an amputee. I had bone cancer when I was in high school, and from that, I spent about, like 8 years trying to save my leg, limb salvage procedures. And in the end, I ended up having this surgery called a rotation plasty, where they actually took my foot and they turned it around and they brought it up and they made it my knee. And so through that whole journey, I've pretty much seen every human prosthesis and brace. So I actually got into the field, and then a few years later, my uncle's a veterinarian, and he introduced me to Dr. Taylor, who was working with the Tennessee program and had a TV show, and then Carrie Adrian, and we started making braces. And 15 years later, here's where I'm at. So.
And have you got a team of people that work with you, Ben? I mean, or is everyone in the same place, or are there people sort of all over the world, or all over America that are working for Hero Braces?
Yeah, we have a few people. So Dr. Brummett is a DVM, and he's certified in chiropractic and rehab. He's out in Grand Junction, Colorado. Carrie Adrian worked a lot with us early on with the design and whatnot, and she still gives us a lot of feedback. And then Ashley York, she's an orthotist and prosthetist like me. She's down in Dallas. And so we kind of work around the country doing a lot of teaching, a lot of casting courses. And then, of course, here we're in rural Nebraska, and we have a whole manufacturing team here. And then we have some computer programmers that are working on our customer service side. So yeah, those guys are kind of all over the world, Nepal and Brussels, and yeah, it's a good group.
Wow. And I mean, you're very involved and you're very supportive of education for veterinary rehabilitation therapists. So I want to thank you, because you're always sponsoring, helping educate. And I've seen recently now you've actually got sort of a video conferencing call that you can do with vet rehab therapists and vets if they've got any questions about prosthetics. Tell me a little bit about that and when you started it.
Yeah, so we call it our virtual clinic, I guess.
Yeah.
when I started 15 years ago, we had email, so when I'd work with someone from a distance, so that they take a picture or video and email it to us. But it ended up, once FaceTime and GoToMeeting and these types of things came along, it's so much easier for us to see live and work through it live. So we started offering that, I want to say maybe a year and a half ago. And it's just been great. It's helped our customer service part just immensely. So we want to keep those pets happy.
And is that for like so vet rehabbers that maybe have a patient which they think, oh, like, is this a candidate for bracing, then they can have one of these like video clinics with you and discuss the case with you, and you guys can brainstorm whether this is the right fit for this dog, or whether surgery is maybe where they should be going.
Yeah, definitely. We use it in that case as well. So if you just don't know, and not sure where to go with it, I can tell you if it's even a candidate. That's a best part to start with before you go talk to the owner about it, right?
And one of the things that vets, and I think veterinary therapists are very nervous of, and I can remember when I first started doing orthotics and prosthetics, the casting procedure was a little bit daunting, because you obviously have, it's sort of like a plaster cast kind of thing. I don't know what it's called. I can't remember what the stuff that you put it into water and then you wrap it around, but it goes around the whole dog's leg, and then you need to cut it off. And it's a little bit daunting to do it, and you're so worried because obviously when you make this cast, it has to be perfect, or as perfect as possible, because that's what you guys are using in order to make the orthotic, right? So, and not having done it before, I remember just feeling a little bit of pressure and just feeling a bit uneasy. And then once I'd done one or two, I actually realized it was really easy. It was sort of like doing a bandage. It wasn't that hard. I know that you do have lots of things on your website, and you've got an area on your website called Bracing Made Simple, which I was really happy to see. And in that is obviously also teaching people how to do casting. Chat to us a little bit about the casting procedure, just so that people can realize that it's actually really easy to do and it's not something to be worried about. Every single one of you guys can do it.
Right. Yeah. No. And I don't. You're not alone. I mean, that's pretty much the biggest thing that people say, that they're worried about this casting process. And so a couple years ago, what we really decided to do as a team is really focus on helping people with that. And so we whenever we go to continuing education places, we really try to work on putting on casting seminars, and we really want people to just do it once, and they can realize that there's a lot of leeway for error in it, but it's really not much different, like you say, than doing a bandage that you're doing in the clinic already. So yeah, with that, like, we have a lot of different teaching things that come with it. When we send out a casting kit, that you actually make, that it's fiberglass is what you're talking about. It's a fiberglass casting kit. Yeah, and so we send out a little kit, but it has a little tip sheet in it. So I used to like teach it step 1, step 2, step 3, and I think we kind of lose those steps. So what I ended up doing was focusing on just 4 key points that will make you successful, and that's what that tip sheet talks about. Ultimately, wrapping it tight and getting the right position, that's going to take care of most of your issues. And that tight part is so counterintuitive, because we don't want to wrap it too tight in a bandage or in a cast, but we really need it tight so we can see all those little bony nuances. And so that's just, overcoming that counterintuitivity, and I don't know if that was a word. Maybe I added some letters to it, but it's once we can kind of overcome that, I think it becomes a lot easier. So.
And so let's just chat about the procedure. So, let's say somebody, we have a client and they want, we want to get a stifle orthotic for a dog. We basically make the cast, we send the cast to you. Talk us through exactly the procedure and the length of time when this happens, because I think that's also one of the things that stop us sometimes. We think, well, how quick is that? We need to sort this dog out quite quickly. Is this going to take a while? And obviously it depends where you are in the world. So if you can just run through the whole procedure with us, just with some timelines.
Right, and because we want to sort it out quickly, it's better to get started earlier. So we have a couple different options with the casting kit. Some people will just keep a casting kit in their clinic, so when that happens, we don't have to worry about ordering and the shipping time just to get there. So if you would like to have a casting kit on hand, just let us know and we'll ship you a casting kit to just keep in your clinic. So there's a few day window. In the States, we offer free 2-day shipping, but we'll ship anywhere in the world, that understanding that there's that shipping and time cost. So taking the cast, once you've done it a few times, it takes about 15 minutes. The first time it might take a half hour to 45 minutes, but like Paul says, our DVM, he's like, how long did your first spay take? You know, and what how good are you at it now? So it just takes a couple times, and really once you get it down, it takes about 15 minutes for that process. Then the shipping to us, it takes us about 2 weeks to manufacture the brace, and then the shipping back. And so we can shorten that window by how we ship it, if we, you know, next day it or whatnot. And so that's kind of how we speed things up that way. As far as the fitting, if you're unsure that first few times, we can schedule that virtual clinic and actually be there live with you the first few times to help you give the words to say to the owner, so they know they're comfortable. Because there's some fitting nuances that don't really make sense, because, you know, sometimes people think, hey, this should fit like a glove, but we're trying to do specific, limit specific motion. So it's not like a glove everywhere. There's supposed to be gappings in spots. They're supposed to be tight in spots. So we can kind of help you through that process.
Is it quite easy for you to see on those videos then? Like, so if they're fitting it, so the vet rehab therapist is fitting it, you ask them to do certain movements and have a look around. Are you able to see on video whether it fits well or not?
Yeah. I mean, it's really pretty easy because we fit so many of them now. I know if this fitting issues happen, then one of these two things are happening, you know. And so we can look at this angle, or we can look at this angle. A lot of times it comes down to how the owner is putting the brace on, and understanding how that should be put on. And so we can just kind of help through that process. I mean, we've gone through several iterations of fitting videos, but ultimately you don't know what they knew before they came in the room, right? And you have to make, you can't make this video so it's 2 hours long, and you can't make it so it's 30 seconds long. So it's somewhere in between, that people will pay attention. And so sometimes we just have to clean up some of those nuances with a little video chat. So
I love the idea of that virtual consult. I mean, I think when I fitted my first ones, it would have been very nice to have that support online. I mean, I just had to do it. So I just put it on and just use my intuition and my veterinary knowledge to know whether this is a good fit or not. And but it would have been great to have some support online. So tell us a little bit about your product, because it is quite different to a lot of the other orthotics on the market. So let's just focus on the stifle orthotic.
Okay. Yeah, so when I first started looking at designing the stifle brace, there was another brace, I can't remember the name of it, but it had this harness that went over the back, and it kind of strapped to the front, and I think what Carrie had found with it was that basically the owners just wouldn't use it because like, I can't remember where this strap goes, and it was just so complex, right? Well, I mean, me being an amputee, I'm kind of the same way. Like, I want this, I have to put my prosthesis on every single day, and I want it to go on as simply as possible, right? I don't want more complexity in my life. And so I really looked at how we could make it simpler. And so dogs it's really tough to hold something on a dog's body just because the fur, everything wants to slide off of it. So with a dog, we really have to focus on leveraging their geometry. So humans kind of have a straight cone going down, and that's hard to hold on to. So we actually try to hold on to the skin. It's kind of tacky with like a rubberized material, so it holds on to it. But with a dog, because they have different shapes, we can actually hold on. So where it's, see, let me line this up here. It's wider here than it is here. So if we can squeeze tighter here, it can't slide past it, right? And that's the same thing that happens with above the hock and the calcaneus. And so what we actually do is we just wrap this little neoprene band that's tight enough above that calcaneus so it can't slide past. And then you slide the brace on and it actually Velcros to it. So that way it holds it in place and you don't have to have this large harness that goes over the body. So that's the first thing that I looked at. The next thing was so many of these braces, and this is a counterintuitive part, okay? So in everybody's mind, soft padding is more comfortable, right? And that's where we all go to. You know, I want a softer couch, I want a softer pillow. And in general, that's true if there's no motion that's involved, okay? The thing about a dog is their thigh is this cone. And what happens is the top of this cone changes shape dramatically as it goes through the range of motion. As they're walking, it goes back and forth. So what that does is if there's a brace on the edge of that, it's gonna slide up and down, okay? So if you put padding on that brace where that's sliding up and down, that padding has more friction, and that friction starts rubbing sores, and that actually causes more pain. So on my prosthesis, the thigh cuff is all hard. It's a hard carbon fiber. And what I do is I kind of roll the edge away so it won't poke into my skin, but it's nice and smooth so it can slide back and forth on a sock. Okay. So on our thigh section, on our brace, we don't have any padding. And that's very intentional. So when that dog's leg changes shape, it can slide up and down. Okay. So then the third difference in our brace is the plastic. And so when you're checking for a cranial drawer, you're shifting the femur and the tibia. So we want to shift the opposite direction, and it's just for a split second. So cranial drawer only happens right at mid stance, okay? And that's when the body's weight pushes and it actually, that moment forces that, okay? It can happen anywhere else, but it only happens then because that's when gravity says for it to happen. So right at mid stance, what happens is the hamstring contracts. And so what we do is we actually have plastic that wraps around the back of the hamstring, okay? And it's actually pushing into the hamstring. And so when that contracts, it pushes the brace back, which sucks it up tight in front of the tibia, okay? And so we have the plastic that's pushing behind the femur and up in front of the tibia to help limit that cranial drawer. So that's how we address it. And by having plastic there, because straps can provide that force, but if you have a strap there, you're relying on, did that owner get it tight enough to actually do that, right? And so we're taking the owner out of the equation by actually having plastic in those spots. So those are the three main differences in our design and how we approach the problem. So.
I mean, tell me, your brace, is it mainly used? I mean, I think things are quite different in the United States compared to South Africa here. And the main difference is really the cost of surgery. So in order for us to get a brace, it's actually more expensive to get the brace than it is for surgery. But I think in the States, it's mainly used for dogs that are not going to be operated on, and as sort of a way in which to try conservative treatment, and then if it doesn't work, they'll go ahead with surgery. Is that the case?
Yeah, generally. So yeah, we have surgeries that are we have a big spectrum of prices of surgeries in the States. So just to rewind back to when I first started this, in human medicine, we do surgery and a brace and physical therapy and, right? But insurance covers everything right? And so we don't have to question that. So in veterinary medicine, that and turns into or, right? And we
It would
start.
be ideal if it was and.
I know, and that's where we all want to get to.
It should be and.
It should be. That's
Yeah.
the best outcome, but unfortunately, it's not. I mean, and I didn't understand that reality when I first got in. So basically, 95 to 98% of what people use bracing for in the States is for dogs that can't have surgery, whether it be comorbidities like Cushing's, diabetes, anesthesia risk. Just a dog that's, a 14-year-old dog, I don't want to risk spending the surgery on. And then there's a group of people that just don't want to have surgery. They wouldn't do it to themselves, and they don't want to do it to their animal. Okay, so that's really where we find that we're helping, and financial. I'm not gonna lie, that's a problem for a lot.
Yeah.
So those are the dogs that we've been helping. Now there's a few that have been looking at it for lateral sutures. Okay, so lateral suture, everybody kind of teaches it as it 70 pounds, which is, I don't know, kilograms, what that is, 45 or 35, 30, 35.
Yeah.
Anyway, everybody has kind of a top spot where, like, this dog's too heavy, we can't do a lateral suture with it. So they're kind of looking at, hey, can we do a lateral suture and a brace, and can we raise that limit a little bit on it? I think when we were talking a little bit before, you mentioned something about TPLOs. I haven't seen in the States that people are using a brace with a TPLO. I think generally surgeons believe in their surgery well enough that they just haven't crossed that boundary to try it. But that's also what they do with physical therapy as well, right? It's not that they believe in the surgery as so much that they haven't introduced physical therapy with it as well, And just to be fair, that's not different than what's happened in the human world. Like when I had my amputation or my first surgery and knee replacement in '91, they started physical therapy that day. Okay, they had me up walking and moving the limb, but they also told me 10 years prior to that, I probably would have been put in a cast for 12 weeks, and then they would have started physical therapy after that, and it would have taken 2 years to hopefully get back to where I was, right? Well, 2 years in a dog's life is a long time. And if we can, start that physical therapy day one, that 2 years goes down to maybe 6 or 12 weeks of physical therapy, right? And so that's something we all battle. And I think bracing can kind of help with that, because bracing can help protect the surgery, and then it's also something removable, so you can start physical therapy right away versus waiting for that initial period, right? And so and I think I kind of went on a tangent on there. I'm sorry. What was the question again?
No, before we talk about that, because otherwise I'm going to forget. Talking about the TPLO, I wanted to tell you that I actually had a case that had TPLOs bilateral, and they did the surgery 6 weeks apart. And the first surgery went really well, and then the second surgery didn't at all. So there were some screws that were loosened, and there was an infection. But this dog started taking real strain, because now I was having to weight bear on that first leg that was operated on. And together with the surgeon, we actually, we didn't know what to do. We knew we needed to help this dog. And so we actually got a brace, but we put it on the first operated leg. And at the time, I remember thinking, what's the right thing to do? And that's where the dog was wanting to weight bear, and it was just taking strain, because it was continually putting all the weights on that leg, and the muscles hadn't developed enough. And so we just really didn't, we wanted to support that leg. Whether that was the right thing or not to do, the dog did better. So, but there's an example of a dog that's been operated on, that has had the brace, obviously in different circumstances, and it was a TPLO. So yeah.
Yeah, no, and I think that's a great approach. I mean, obviously, we already know that if a dog tears one cruciate, they're 60 to 80% likely to tear the other one. Well, a big reason for that is that they're not shifting the weight, right? All that weight is focused on the other limb. Well, basically, this was kind of a backwards thing that you're describing, right? But yeah, it's all focused on one. So like, how do we save that? Because if you don't do that, and I've seen this happen several times for these bilateral cruciates, what they do is they start shifting all their weight forward, and yeah, we start having the carpus drop. But what another thing that happens is because their hind limbs, they start extending them so much. A lot of times, what happens is that hock, it starts flipping the other way, and I've seen it happen on several different dogs. And they're saying, well, I don't know what's going on. Well, it's because they're trying to extend so much and shift their body weight forward and get off the unstable stifles. And so, yeah, as much as we can do that to keep their body weight back, especially those big trunk dogs, that have so much weight forward anyway. So anything that we can do to get them stabilized and feel like they can put some weight back there is going to be good, right? We don't have proof. That's why I'm saying that. It's just like, because I'm the same situation. Even 15 years in, I mean, I go and talk to people and like, this has always worked for 20 years. I'm not going to try that, right? Well, I want better than okay. Like as a patient, I want better than okay for myself, right? And so that's why we try these. Like, and I mean, it's on the outside of the body. It may cause a wound if it's not fitting right, which if that's happening, you need to call the manufacturer so we can fix it. But the thing about that is this experiment, you can see what's going on. You can't see what's going on if you give a dog a medicine and what it's doing to its liver or those different things, right? So what can we do to help these animals best? And I think that's how we learn, and that's how we grow as a profession, is just trying these little things. And that's I'm glad to hear that worked for that TPLO. So good for you.
So interesting, talking about those dogs with the upright hocks that sort of have that like tarsal hyperextension. So in my way of thinking, I've seen those cases, okay, but in my mind, I think they're like that because of their conformation, and it always alerts me. I think their conformation are very straight, upright back legs, and I think to myself, those ones are predisposed to cruciate ruptures. But you do definitely have those that, suddenly it becomes worse. And I've never thought that's maybe because of them shifting their weight. In my mind, it's just a conformational thing. It's how they were born, when you see them, because you don't often always see them from the beginning. They get referred to like that. And you think, well, maybe it was like that. They just didn't notice. And now the dog's been maybe diagnosed, because sometimes those cases are hip dysplasia cases. First and foremost, that's the diagnosis you get, and then they generally end up with cruciate ruptures too. So yeah, it's an interesting way of thinking, and it's changed my mindset now when I think of those, to think actually they're shifting their weight, and that's what's actually causing that hyperextension.
Well, yeah, because and so like my mind works in force vectors when I'm watching a dog walk, and so basically what I'm looking at is I find out where the center of mass is, and it obviously it's you're looking at the trunk size and you're like, okay, so it's about here, right? And then in my mind, what I'm doing is I'm drawing a line from there down to where the paw touches the ground, okay? And that line, wherever it is compared to a joint, if it's on this side of the joint, it's causing the joint to move one way versus on the other side. So basically what I've seen with dogs, what they can control, if a joint's unstable, they shift their body weight to try to stabilize an unstable joint. it doesn't matter what it's doing to the other joints, because they have some sort of control over it, right? They're just trying, whether it be a hip or whatever, they're shifting their weight to do that. As humans, we can't really do that the same. But if you think about, someone in a walker, how they're shifted forward, their whole body weight shifted forward. A lot of the reason that they're doing that is to stabilize their knee, so their knee doesn't buckle. And it's by shifting that weight forward, it pushes it back. Okay. And the reason that I look at it that way is in prosthetics, we have to align the prosthesis where the foot contacts the ground compared to the joint. Otherwise, it'll cause a varus or valgus moment, or it'll cause the knee to buckle very easily. And that's actually how we provide stability for above the knee amputees that have this mechanical joint. We make it really stable by where the foot hits the ground. So this is just kind of what dogs are doing, but they're shifting the center of mass instead of where the ground reaction point is. And yeah, it has unintended consequences that they're not thinking of, and so that's just one way to look at it, I guess. So
let's chat a little bit about more about TPLO. So you recently posted a Facebook post, which I thought was really interesting. You said that we're looking at Google Trends, and that the number of searches now for orthotics, stifle orthotics for dogs, has increased in the number of searches for people that are searching about TPLOs.
Yeah, so Google has this thing, if you search Google Trends, so you can look up elections, like what people are searching for, right? And it doesn't give you the exact number of searches, but what it does is if you compare it against another search word, it tells you where they are relative to each other. And so I've been doing this for 15 years, so I was wondering, like, well, what has the change been, And I just use the word dog brace, so that encompasses, dog leg brace, dog knee brace, so it encompasses quite a few things. And then I put it against TPLO, which that's everything that people search with the TPLO. And the TPLO is always up here, and it's stayed pretty steady over the last 15 years. It maybe dropped a little bit, but then it's come back up. But dog braces was way down here, like you couldn't see anything. And around 2009, so about 10 years ago, it started slowly climbing. And just for like 3 months, it was higher than TPLO, but then they like follow each other. And they're just kind of bouncing back and across with each other. So for me, that was a cool thing, right? Because that's what I do. Like, hey, people are
awesome.
Yeah. But I think what's more important about it is that there's this underlying thing that people are looking for alternatives to surgery, whether it be TPLO or whatever. They're looking for other things, and I started playing a little bit. And it's not just bracing. I mean, canine rehab, all those chiropractic acupuncture, they're all climbing, and for all the people that have been in the trenches and trying to grow the field of rehab, early on the conversation was really tough to get surgeons or general practice, anybody really on board with it, right? And so I think we all need to give ourselves a pat on the back, because there's a lot of people that have worked really hard at this, and it's starting to show in what people are looking for, and that's a really cool thing to me. So I'm excited to see where the next 15 years have to go for all of canine rehab.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's awesome. And I think the internet has really helped, and social media, because images of dogs with braces on, images of dogs with prosthetics on. So people are seeing these kind of things, and they're realizing, actually, this is not just a once-off story somewhere. This is happening all over the world. And people that own pets, this is something that is accessible to all of them. Whereas, years ago, if I say that, maybe like 10 years ago, social media wasn't so big. It's only sort of started in the last 10 years, really started to grow. People didn't think, they just thought, oh, that's something that I could never afford, and something that I could never get access to. Whereas now they're all asking their vets, and if I think about, I opened up my clinic 2006, 2007, and although I'm not currently practicing, I still get emails and Facebook messages about people wanting braces, prosthetics, because obviously they know me as the person in South Africa that was doing it. And it's just getting more and more and more. And people, if there's a kitten that they found and they see it's got a deformed leg, I need a brace for this kitten. And it's something that they know they can do now. Whereas before it wasn't even a question. It wasn't even an idea that came into their mind. It was just, this kitten either has to be put to sleep or the leg amputated or something like that. So it is amazing. And it's to all the people out there that, like you say, have just been carrying on and just not stopping, just knowing that we can make a difference. So well done to all of you, and well done to you, Ben. 15 years, it's a long time.
Yeah, no, it's been fun. A lot of great relationships I've built in this profession. So I very much appreciate so many people out there. So helped me along the way for sure.
So where to from now? What is the mission, for Go Hero Braces? What do you hope to achieve? Like, if you could wave a magic wand and whatever your dreams come true for bracing and for Go Hero, what would it be?
Well, obviously I want to see it continue to grow and get more adoption. Like, I think we've just scratched the surface for all of canine physio and in general. So early on, I used to have 50 or 70 different devices that I made. I could do it because I was all local in Denver. And as I started working from a distance, there's so many more complications, especially at that time, that I couldn't do. So I really focused it down to the cruciate, the carpal, and the tarsal brace, right? And this is what I can really help people from a distance. I shied away from prosthetics because I just didn't feel like I could get a good enough fit from a distance. I really needed to have my hands on it. Some things have changed now. Now we have video conferencing and virtual clinic, so that kind of opens up the world a little bit. I still have some ideas about osseointegration and how we can grow that. So as we start getting more adoption of the bracing, take the money and put it into more research and designing other things and expanding the team. So my mind, I don't know that the journey's ever over. It's just, what can we do right now with the resources that we have? And what do we have to wait for 10 years till something develops, right? And so mostly right now, what we're trying to do and really focus on is just getting people comfortable understanding the nuances that are different, like the counterintuitive things, like I talked about padding versus plastic. There should be padding in some places, but there should be just plastic in other places. So really just spreading the word with that, and really just trying to help lift physio in general. So that's where our focus is right now. So.
Well, all us vet rehabbers, thank you for all your support and everything you do in the orthotics world. And yeah, we wish you luck in all the new innovation and things that are coming for the future for you. So thank you so much for your time. I really, really appreciate it. And we look forward to seeing you in 2 days' time for Vet Rehab Summit. For those of you that have not signed up yet, please, you can go to www.vetrehabsummit.com. And for Online Pet Health members, of course, you get your VIP golden tickets, so free access to the Vet Rehab Summit. And Go Hero will be there. So if you have any more questions for Ben about his products and his services, you can hop over to the Go Hero stand and go and have a live chat with him.
Sounds great. Thanks so much for having me.
Awesome, Ben. See you in 2 days. Bye.
Sounds good. Bye.